Hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome to Build Up Series. Today we have a super special guest, Laura Aparicio. She is a friend of mine. We went to university together, and actually we both started having our fashion brand at the same time. However, Laura kept having her brand and she's been up in the market for 5 years. So I thought it was a great idea to interview her and see how the journey of actually making a brand and being in the market for over 5 years is going for her. I'm going to leave Laura so she can introduce herself. Thank you, Laura, for joining us today.
Thank you, Diana, for this amazing opportunity. It's been a pleasure for me being, since I know you, I admire you a lot. So it's a pleasure for me to be here.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. So cute. Laura is Colombian, by the way. I think that's why we clicked so much. Well, among the other things. But Laura, do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Right.
Before we start?
So I'm Colombian. I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. I went to Italy to study fashion design at Istituto Marangoni. I was 18 years old, so I was quite a young lady. I lived in Milan for almost 6 years. Then in 2016, I decided to launch my brand, Laura Aparicio, a women's ready-to-wear label. It's been a beautiful journey. It's being an entrepreneur and being abroad and start your brand, producing in a different country. It's been a very beautiful journey. So our brand, Laura Aparicio, is built on the idea of timeless and effortless silhouettes, which are inspired, obviously, by Latin American cultures and men's wardrobe. So it has this kind of combination of very feminine silhouettes, but still very masculine attitude a little bit. So the brand offers a line of pure cuts, simple silhouettes, minimal constructions and experimental textures. So it's this kind of combination which the brand reflects a more conscious pace. We can say it's more not as sustainable, but a more conscious pace and process, combining modern, versatile clothes, but still on a more conscious way of working.
Amazing. And why did you feel the need of making a new brand? It's such a crowded industry. I don't know if you know, but we do workshops at Diana Llanes Consulting. And one of my first questions always to all the people doing the workshop is like, why do you want to do a brand? It's a really crowded industry. So why did you decide to do it? What was that need, that purpose?
Well, it's as you're saying, it's such a crowded industry. But since I can remember, it was my dream. It is what it moves me. Is my passion. It's always been my passion. It's always been my dream. I dreamt when I was a little girl to become a fashion designer, to study in Milan. So I really don't see myself doing anything different in my life than this. So I think that's as simple as that.
Okay. Yeah, plus I think it's very much in our veins, like as Latin Americans, to have our own thing, no?
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about Laura Aparicio is that you've done it very internationally. Like you've done it with the idea of growing it, not of staying like local, it's nothing bad staying local. It's just that you did it with like a view of being an international brand, which I think is the most difficult part, internationalizing who you are and what you do.
Yeah, it is true. Since I wanted to be a fashion designer, I wanted to study in Milan. So I think that kind of perspective as human being and as a creative person I had it on my roots, on my veins. To have my product abroad, to have it in Europe, to have clients all around the world. It's been a very important base, and strong, floor for the brand. So that's my goal, and it's been since the beginning. So
yeah. And I mean, you've been up in the market for 5 years, but do you remember how was it to create, like, the creation of the brand? No, so how did you decide on the name? I still remember when we were both planning on having our own brands, and we were still speaking about, oh, but why aren't you going to call it like you or whatever? Well, you were asking me that. So how did you decide to like the name and the branding, so packaging, everything regarding Laura Aparicio, and how through the market perception you've been able to do to adapt it to the market needs? Do you remember how it started and how it's like, why and how it has actually matured among these 5 years?
Well, it's very nice to remember, the beginnings. When I made the decision to start my brand, I was sure that it should have my name, my name and my last name. Laura Aparicio. I thought it was quite a little long name and last name, so I was trying to find a different name, but at the end I was saying, no, I have to use my name. I'm actually a fashion designer. I want to have my print, my everything that has to look around, and everything that has to that it's me, Laura Aparicio.
You wanted it to be like your baby. You wanted people to relate the brand to who you are, not to something else.
Exactly. So I couldn't find any other name that could express what I really wanted to build. I began to imagine how I wanted to speak to my client, and that is, the important base, the important starting point of branding, that you have to look for the logo, the general, aesthetics of the brand, the colors, for example, for us, the simple and geometric lines, but at the same time, the easy easy way to read it, so that the designs, which are sometimes complex but very at the same time minimal, so everything has to be built on this kind of idea that you have to express a very concrete message with your name, with your logo, with your packaging,
with your visual identity.
Exactly. So however complex or simple they may be, the designs, they create that kind of balance between shapes and dualities, which is our brand. So strong and delicate at the same time. So we actually we built this brand, this journey, the whole aesthetic around the Laura Aparicio.
And I even remember you changed already your logo once, right?
Yes, we did, because when we started, we actually, as Laura Aparicio is a little bit long name, it was built more on, everything was capital letters. So we had a little difficulties when people when they were reading the name, they were, oh, it's Laura Aparicio. So they were trying so hard to read it. So we said, okay, we have to build in minimal, not capital letters, but on a more familiar way to adapt our logo and be more familiar to people around the world. So we actually changed a lot, a completely different story for Laura Aparicio, which is now the logo that you'll find on our website, on our logo, and it's built, as I was saying, on this kind of idea of shapes, of round shapes, of structure, but at the same time minimal, which is at the end our core of our DNA.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And which ones would you say were the biggest difficulties you faced during the process of creating your brand? And if you would have to do a new brand from scratch, which mistakes would you avoid doing now that you have all this experience? So of course, I'm not saying 5 years ago, what wouldn't you have done? Because that's impossible. I mean, that's too easy. So if you would have to redo it again, knowing everything you know nowadays, what would you avoid doing?
Well, I would say that the fear, a little bit, of starting something of my own. I had this fear when I started, with the uncertainty of what would come. I think that's the most difficult part when an entrepreneur, when we all start a new business, this kind of uncertain journey just scared us. But with all sincerity, I tell you that if I had to create a brand today from scratch, with the experiences I have had, I would not change anything. I mean, everything has forced me, has become what I'm today, what my brand has been today, has, you know, forged and formed my personality, my tenacity. Everything has become part of the journey. So I'm proud of my journey. Of what I faced, of what I think that the only thing I would only change is that kind of fear what I had at the beginning. So I can say any of new upcoming designers that want to start, just start, you know, take out that fear and just go for it. Just believe in yourself, and you'll make a lot of mistakes. It's part of the journey. It's part of life that you have to live.
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful thing. I mean, if I go back and if I close my eyes, I see a lot of mistakes, but they have been they have taught me a lot in this journey in this 5 years. So I think I would not change anything, really.
Yeah. And but do you remember, like, which one were the biggest difficulties? I don't know, maybe to sell, or maybe the way you were showcasing your collection, because you've passed through many of the things, like showrooms, presentations, mono-brand showrooms, multi-brand showrooms, like everything, no? So what, maybe it's not in sales, but what was the biggest difficulty? Maybe it was in production, maybe, like, what would you say, like, oh, this was really difficult?
Okay, well, I can say a little bit of production. When I started the brand, I started to produce in Colombia, and then I went to produce in Italy. The problem which I faced in my country was suppliers and production. You have to find someone that understands you, that believes in you, that will work hand by hand and will grow with you. Because if you are starting with a small brand, you cannot face big productions. I mean, you cannot, if you don't have suppliers, if you don't have buyers, you cannot go to a big supplier that will ask you for big quantities. I mean, it doesn't make sense. At the end, you'll lose money, you'll lose time, you'll lose you will have a lot of inventory that you have to sell or burn. I mean, that's the true story and the sad story of this business. So you have to find someone that will grow with you and that will believe in you, because it'll takes time. And I think production, quality production. Also, you have to find someone that will give you quality, and that's difficult to find.
Very much. Also, because when you go to smaller producers, most of them are very, like, artisanal, but not like in a good way, not like that beautiful artisanship that you have in mind, but it's more like someone that it's making that in the living room of the house, and then maybe the quality is really not good at all. Plus the responsibility as well is a problem, right? Like
Yes.
when they don't want to take responsibility, it's like, you did it wrong, you have to redo it, and they're like, no, I will not.
Yeah, exactly. Because they can be very good to make you a small production, but once you have more orders, you have to find someone that really finds the way that are prepared to receive your materials, that you have to have the same quality for all 200, 1,000 garments. So you really have to find someone that will grow with you, but at one time that your business will ask you to grow. So that's when you have to find someone that will grow with you even more. So I think production is a really difficult thing when you start a brand.
Yeah, that's that's something really difficult. I am now working with an upcoming designer. She's been up in the market for 3 years, but it's like, I can say that my biggest pain during 2021, it has been her brand, but not because, like, it's not because of her necessarily, but really, really, really is very difficult to find like a real good supplier that you can, like, producer that you can trust. And also the quantities in terms of materials, because then maybe you find also like good suppliers, but then they have really high quantities. Mm-hmm. Like maybe, I don't know, you need 400 soles and you're like, okay, I can't have 400 soles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you remember how it was to create your first collection?
Yes. Well, I can say my creative process has evolved very much. I mean, a lot. My first collection, what I see today has been a huge evolution. But I love, what I love is that I see the collection I just, the one we're selling, and I will see it in 5 years and we'll see a huge evolution as well. So we have to be, proud of that evolution as entrepreneurs. It's part of life. We are human beings. We change a lot. I can say today I like black color, and tomorrow I like pink. I don't know. It's part of life. So since my brand has my name, so it has my print, my DNA, it also has to change. And you have to get to know your client. You have to evolve. You have to get to know your client, what they want, what you can anticipate for them, and to a little bit take them out of the box and change the way you're selling your product, you're communicating your product. So it's been, a huge evolution. But I feel, but somehow I feel our DNA gets even stronger. Mm-hmm. We're working, and it's, as I'm saying, it takes time. But I think our DNA gets stronger, and the woman in whom we're inspired, it's more defined. How she moves, how she acts, how she thinks, her sensuality, which is very more. How she faces sensuality, and her modern attitude, but at the same time elegance and versatility. This kind of woman, it's actually getting more real. So I can say since the beginning, or since our first collection, this woman was a little bit more shy, probably, and now she's more empowered, more powerful, more convicted that she can just change the world a little bit, So that's how I've seen our DNA gets stronger and more defined.
And I don't know if it happened to you, but when I started designing myself, like, I remember that I was very much like schoolish, So even though, I still see my first collection and I love it, but I remember that it was like, oh, I need to do this mood board, and then I need to do the materials like this, and then I need to do this. And now it just became super practical. And it's like, I get here, you paste everything, and you're like, okay, this is done, you know?
Yes,
Like,
I mean, and you have to be flexible, as you're saying. You have to be practical. You when you go to school, you start doing things as they say they have to be. But when you actually work for another brand, when you have experience for another designer, or when you start your brand, you actually don't know where to start. You have to do everything. You have to be the one that packages, do the packaging, do the sales, do the email searching for retailers and everything. So at the end, it's just so complex, but you have to get organized with your daily tasks so you can actually, you know,
make things happen. Because actually the least you do is actually designing.
Exactly.
It's really sad to admit, but a fashion designer, the least they do is actually to design. I know. When people would ask me, like, what do you do on your daily life? I'm like, I'm sending a lot of emails, packing boxes, contacting suppliers, chasing the producer, looking for the stores, checking for the posts on Instagram.
And when do you have the time to design your clothes? I don't have the time. I mean, I have to for it. I mean,
it happens as a miracle once a month, like once a year, during 1 month. Yeah. And as you were saying, you started producing in Colombia, then you passed to Italy, and now you're producing again in Colombia. So why did you decided to start in Colombia? Why did you decide to move to Italy? And why are you back in Colombia? So, like, why the change of decision? And this is great because, as you just said, you know, you need to adapt as an entrepreneur. And sometimes we are so fixed on, like, this is our idea, this is what it has to be. And it's like, no, nothing has to be one way or the other, you know, it has to be the best way it works for you. So why did you decide to change that? And what has been the pros and cons of Colombia versus Italy?
Okay, so as I was saying, I started producing in Colombia. I faced a huge problem with suppliers, with production suppliers, which the quality, which were, well, after being in Italy for 6 years, I knew a lot of suppliers. I made an important network of commercial contacts and suppliers. So it was the perfect way, you know, to start something in Italy. So when I faced this problem, this production obstacle in Colombia, I knew I had a lot of contacts in Italy. So, you know, it was the perfect scenario to start my brand and produce my collections in Milan. But I was living in Colombia. So this, you know, distance problems, I was living and I was based in Bogota. So this long distance relationship between suppliers, with
your work, with your baby,
with my baby. So, you know, starting a brand and you at long distance, I mean, makes everything more complex. So we all know that the Italians are the pioneers of quality and design. So what better chance to learn from them and come back to Colombia to build a different perspective of quality in Colombia, which we're getting very, very high standards in our brand and here in Colombia as a country. So yes, I think it was part of the journey. We had to produce, you know, these 3 collections we produced in Italy, so we could arrive here in Colombia and say, okay, this is the quality I want, not less. Yeah, this is the standard I want for my brand. This is what the market asks for, and this is what we're gonna ask them to pay for it. So Yeah, I mean, everything changed obviously during the pandemic. I was traveling in 2020 before the pandemic, almost uh, 5 or 6 or 7 times in a year to Italy. So it wasn't sustainable, you know? So
Yeah,
I
it's a
was
very cost intensive. I mean, for a new brand, it's like, how is it possible?
exactly more than just expensive. It wasn't sustainable for my health, for, you know, the carbo, you know, not for the planet, I mean. So I was coming back to a more inner, you know, thinking about myself, thinking about the brand, thinking about what we were gonna face after the pandemic. And I say, okay, now I'm in Colombia. I have to face this reality. I have to work with my country, with my people, and start producing again my collections here in my roots. You know, I came back to my origins. That's why the last collection we're selling at this moment, it's called Origins, because I really came back to my roots, to what we have here in Colombia, that that we have to, you know, continue empowering and training all the amazing women we work with, and the ones that make actually this dream go forward. So it's been more than a completely different mindset, but which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful because it's not just me, but I think as Latin Americans, we have the prejudice that our countries are not enough. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, I mean, that Italy is really good, it is true. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best one. Also because what it's best for you, it's not necessarily something that, maybe it's not made in Italy, what's best for you. Maybe the best for you is to be nearby production, or to empower the women of your country, or to give job opportunities to your country, no? So better, it's a very broad thing. So to define what's better for your brand, and to know that Colombia is good enough for you being Colombia, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Like, I've never been able to do much in Venezuela, also because I left when I was 16. And I've always been abroad since then. So I have not had the chance, but I know that, like, for people being abroad, it's like, I mean, but my country's a disaster. And of course it has its bad things, but it's amazing to find the good things and to find the artisanship, because at the end, all Latin American countries are artisans.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of craftsmanship, but we, as you were saying, when you go abroad, you actually, and you come back, you really see that we're very powerful countries. That Colombia, Venezuela, South America, we're countries that we have faced a lot of difficulties, of poverty, of everything. So the opportunities are here. I mean, in Italy, when I was facing this production new chapter of the brand, I knew everything was done, and in my country I had to do everything. So that's where we have an opportunity. That's where we can change a little bit of our industry, and we can actually have our print, you know, and say I was producing in Colombia, but I had the opportunity to change a lot of people's lives. So you have the chance to make much more impact. Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And being based in Colombia, how do you source your materials? And I mean, I imagine that there is a limit of the sourcing, because it's being made in the region. In the region, I mean, not just Colombia, but maybe Ecuador and Brazil and like the nearby countries. Whereas, for example, in Italy, it's super easy because everyone wants to come and source in Italy. Mm-hmm. So have you engaged with any importation for materials? How is it? Because that's something I see also with like our attendees from the workshops. They have this will to actually like, oh yeah, I want to import all materials. I'm like, well, that's a bit complicated and expensive, you know, like having to do with customs is not the best thing to do. So how do you do to source your materials? And yeah, how has it been if you have imported?
Okay, yes, we have this importation, still we have, you know, this kind of issues. Most of it because after the pandemic, Colombia as a country, they want to protect their own fabrics, you know, what it comes from the outside, what everything has to be it's more complex. So taxes and duties obviously got a little bit more expensive. So, but we have this combination. I still work very closely with our suppliers in Italy and France, but we have strengthened the work with the manual, you know, all the craftsmanship and the artisanal work in Colombia and Central America, because we work also with artisans in Guatemala.
Nice.
We're starting to
with the weavings.
Yes, with the weavings, with the looms, with all this, you know, what makes us special in Central and South America. So we're strengthening that kind of part, which has a story behind the product, you know. But also we combine with our suppliers in Italy. So the idea of experimenting with textiles and different techniques makes us combine, you know, this bridge between South America and Italy or the world. So we still have a lot of suppliers in Italy that gives us very, you know, very easy ways of importations that we can manage and combine with all of this beautiful technical process and manual processes here in Colombia and Central America.
Amazing. And regarding the distribution, I'm trying to give as much information from you to everyone in our community because what you're doing, Laura, is like many people's dreams. So I think it's really nice that you're so open and you want to share your story, because I think it's not that obvious that people want to share it. But how has the distribution process worked along the years? I know Laura Aparicio is nowadays in other markets that is not just Colombia. So which markets are you in, and how has it been? Like, do you go to showrooms? Do you have agents? Do you go yourself? Do you contact the stores? How do you do to distribute your products? And how has it evolved during these 5 years?
Okay, so when we started producing our collections in Milan, which was the second, the third, and the fourth collection, we worked hand by hand with a commercial agent in Italy who opened doors for us in this market in Italy and Europe. When we came back to produce in Colombia, we had all of these contacts, retailers and everything, but you know, it takes time. Retailers, any entrepreneur who is listening, they have to be patient. They have to build a brand. They have to build a DNA, very strong DNA, that a retailer, when they come back, when they see you with your first collection, then come back for your fourth, and then for your sixth collection, they have to see the evolution, but the same DNA. So it takes time. I mean, we are now seeing the results. We have worked for 5 years. So hand by hand, we did a lot of commercial contacts in Europe, in Italy. Now we're selling in boutiques in Italy, in Portugal, in UK. And before the pandemic, we wanted to open Asia and Middle East as new markets for Laura Aparicio. We saw a very strong interest in these markets. in our product.
Yeah.
So we went to Singapore and did a trunk show where we talked with big retailers in Singapore, in Asia, and we're starting, to move forward on this new chapter of the brand in seeking new upcoming countries, which are like Singapore, like India, like Egypt. I mean, you'll find, when you find your product more on a more Asian or European or American aesthetic, you see where your product can be can have a more bigger impact. So in the Middle East, we just came back from Dubai, which it was a very interesting trip. We're now for next year we'll be in Dubai, in Qatar. So it's everything, as I was saying, it takes time. You have to have your goals, very clear goals. You have to know your product. If you have more, I see myself more on a European and Asian markets than American. As I'm South American, probably I have North America much closer to me. So for me, it's more, something completely different, new, Middle East and Asia. So I wanted this for my brand to be built on this aesthetic, which is more minimal, which is more practical, which is more versatile. So this is the road we're taking for the brand. After the pandemic, we saw how everything changed. As consumers, we changed, our buying behavior. So the relationship with digital shopping changed. So we launched our e-commerce, and
which is beautiful, by the way.
Yes, with international, available for international markets and worldwide shipping. So we wanted to approach directly to our final consumer, because at the end, if you have a B2B business, you don't know at the end who buys your product. But if you seek to find your way in a B2C, so business to consumer, directly to consumer strategy, you find, and you have a lot of information, you have data, what your consumer likes,
their needs, their real needs,
like.
How to change your product to their actual needs.
Exactly. So it's been, really satisfying for us to receive consumers from all over the world, which has been organic. We have not, we didn't see sales coming from Qatar, for example, but everything was very organic. So even countries that we had not thought would come to us. So this is a big opportunity for us. I think on our own e-commerce, we have to build a much stronger strategy and communicate and get to know more our consumers. So this is the goal for Laura Aparicio, to build a more stronger e-commerce that you can shop directly from us and shipped from Colombia to the world.
Wow. Well, Laura, and before we finish, do you have any advice for those who would like to start their own brand?
I'll say follow your intuition, find your DNA and stick to it. I mean, as I was saying, you have to stick to your DNA, stick to your story. We all have different stories. We all have different backgrounds. So we all have different dreams. You have to develop a great ability to adapt, to change even more after, what we faced last year. So you have to be prepared to act well in unexpected situations. So I'll say be patient and stick to your DNA.
Yeah. Patience is key.
Yes.
It's key. Amazing. Well, Laura, for those who would like to see more of Laura Aparicio, read more about you, see your beautiful products, where can they go visit you, like, or website or Instagram, whatever you want? How can people reach out to you?
Okay, so they can find us, you all can find us on lauraparicio.com. You can shop our collections. We deliver worldwide. So you can just go and ask for everything that you would like to ask for. We're very open as well to your comments and everything. So, and our Instagram is Laura Aparicio _official. And so you can see a little bit more of our world of Laura Aparicio.
Amazing. Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much, actually, for your time and for being so open and sharing all your journey with our community. And thank you, of course, to everyone who listened. I always love speaking. I've been interviewing a lot of people like lately, and most of them are or really good friends of mine or people I've worked in the industry with. And I have to say that I'm super lucky to have all this brilliant people surrounding me, which of course one being you, because you've had a beautiful journey. So thank you very much for sharing it. And well, maybe we'll do another one just to follow up on how Laura Aparicio is going in Qatar and Dubai. We're really looking forward to seeing that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diana, for your time and for this amazing experience to share my experience, my journey, so that any entrepreneur can follow their dreams. You have to trust yourself and go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And see you in the next Build Up series.